Aaron, I've got a massive surprise for you today.
What could it be, Jake?
We're going to be playing your favourite game of all time.
Resident Evil Outbreak? All my birthdays have come at once.
No, it's Half-Life 2, you idiot.
The time is 8:47 a.m. Current topside temperature is 93 degrees, with an estimated high of 105. The Black Mesa compound is maintained at a pleasant 68 degrees at all times.
One of my biggest frustrations is that a lot of video games haven't learnt from what Half-Life executed. Most modern video games now are games that are trying to be movies, whereas what Half-Life is taking the plot of a movie and making it a video game.
Yeah.
And those are two very, very different concepts that we'll explore, and I'll explain how throughout the course of this, not a lecture, but an educational video, as well as fun and entertaining.
Well, if any universities want to have us come in and make it a
Yeah, I
lecture,
mean, I'm
we
more
could
than happy to
definitely
lecture
do
any
that.
video game
Yeah.
design students, because frankly they've all been doing a terrible job for years now. So they probably need my expertise. And yes, you can have expertise that is expert. It's a bit of a redundantary adjective, but that's what my expertise is. So first-person shooters have been quite very much about just shooting and killing things. Plots weren't that important. And level design wasn't built around any sort of intuitive environments. So, like Doom, for example, that's like unlike anything that's ever existed. And I think that was probably one of the biggest first-person shooters up until this time, I would say. And those levels are all obviously intelligently designed to challenge the player, but they're not built around any sort of real-world environments.
Yeah.
What is incredibly impressive about Half-Life is that the level design is very well built around the engine and very challenging scenarios, but they're also built into a real-world environment, which is, yes, this fictional scientific laboratory, but you're in the canteen, you're in the offices, you're in these you're fighting through this lab this whole time, and it feels like a real place where you are. It comes to life even through characters with only one voice, a couple of voice actors. It feels like somewhere you could imagine, and the opening gives you such a great introduction to it.
Yeah.
And this is what's so effective about its opening is that it shows you it's just a place like any other. You've got men banging on vending machines, just people. And yes, they are scientists, but they're just working like any other office space. You can do the cracking microwave thing where you make it explode by just pressing it loads of times. It just has to be done every single time you play it.
Yeah, the seamless experience extends also to the fact that in other first-person shooters, we'd mainly be going through levels.
Yeah.
And each level will be specifically designed with a start and an end. Whereas it's
told in chapters.
It's chapters, but it is almost like levels, but done in as seamless as possible.
Absolutely.
Because all you get are these tiny little second, loading screens basically between areas,
and then just chapters just overlaying over the top of the screen.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of the storytelling again, what I absolutely love about Half-Life is that the story is told not through cutscenes. There's no cutscenes. Even that first thing where you're just on that train, you have complete control over where your character is looking and where your character is moving to. Now, this is a head crab just sat here on top of this guy. He's going to make him a zombie. The game is already quickly showing you there how these things are made. The head crabs grab onto scientists and turn them into those fucking freaky zombies. I've killed him. And I've blown up the scientist as well, just for good measure, to make sure that he won't turn into a zombie. But the game's already showing you some very little small elements there. Never explains it. Never tells you, oh, these people have turned into zombies. It's all crazy. This is exactly how it happens. But you can clearly see that's a head crab. You've already fought them. That's what will happen to you if a head crab gets you. You're shown, you're not told, which is always a very effective element of storytelling.
I've thought of a better way you could tell that though, Aaron.
How could you tell that better?
If we had to quit to the main menu and go into a little menu that said encyclopedia.
All right.
And then you could click on the head crab thing and it would tell you about them.
And there's G-Man, right there. Just standing around, just a man in a suit, standing with some other doctors. Wonder what he's there for. Standing with some other scientists, always looking at Gordon Freeman. And it's even though Gordon Freeman himself And the idea of Gordon Freeman is that he is this unwitting hero who's accidentally thrust into something he doesn't understand. The reality is that he's actually been watched, that he is a very special individual, and that you are playing as a character, yes, who can't speak, but who has some sort of power and ability and will affect things. And, you are playing as not just a faceless scientist, but as a character who, even within the storyline, is of huge importance to everything that is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm talking about Half-Life being a video game that feels like a movie, what I'm referring to are sections where action movie set plays occur, but it's all in your control. The events happen to you. So my favourite moments in Half-Life are where you've got to fight the shark, like fucked up alien shark in the water. Now they've been experimenting on this. They've got a shark tank hanging over it, and you see a guy fall in and get torn to bits just as you get there. And then you've got to climb up. You've got to go across this little beam, and you've got to drop down into the shark cage to get what's in there. And as soon as you drop into the shark cage, the cage falls off the thing. You are completely within free control of what you're going on. You're in this cage zone, it bangs straight into the water, and this fucking shark thing's flying about. And then you have multiple ways in which you can handle it. You can try and swim out of there quick enough that it can't get you, and then attack it from the outside. You could even not kill it, or you're down in the water shooting the crossbow in this shark cage, trying to survive. The game puts you right in that position. It's straight out of a movie. Another one later on. You're trapped in some pipes, crawling through a pipe. You see the end of this tunnel open up. A soldier throws a bomb into it. Bomb like you've never seen. You've already faced grenades and stuff throughout the game. This is a bomb like nothing else. It sets off, and it's like a rain of fire, just like coming through. And it's like you're either going to get caught in it or you don't. So you turn back around and you're crawling madly through this pipe, this fire chasing after you. You drop down into this water, boom, fire comes shooting over the top of you. It's just another example of a huge action movie set piece. Another thing I absolutely love about Half-Life is the variety of enemies that you encounter throughout the game. You have enemies that can shoot you from a distance. You have enemies that are very much up close, going to beat the shit out of you. You're then also faced with aliens, but then you're also faced with intelligent AI humans who move like soldiers, try and flank you. They'll try and trap you with grenades. And these enemies and these sections become really, really intense and really difficult because you're then up against a completely different set of opponent than what you were facing earlier on in the game. Mm-hmm. The difficulty continues to amp up to the point where you're then fighting soldiered aliens who have alien weapons that they can use against you. The hive hand, the huge soldiers with hive hands. And any section where you've got to fight these guys, it's like, fuck me, they're going to take a right absolute hammering to kill these guys. Mm-hmm. And the difficulty just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. Near the end, you've got flying enemies quite late in the game. You're constantly faced with a very interesting, very shifting, changing the sorts of enemies that you're up against.
I think the most memorable section for me is probably the it's kind of a sewer section, I guess you would say, and the barnacle enemies,
Absolutely,
which I think are just such a great enemy design.
It's a great enemy.
And they're just naturally placed in a section that you would expect that kind of creature to exist.
Then Half-Life also intelligently places barnacles in offices and sections like that where you're actually fighting other enemies and can easily just run into them.
Yeah. This kind of thing is one of the reasons why I actually prefer Half-Life 1 to Half-Life 2.
Alright.
Because there's a lot of horror elements spread throughout the entire game. And it feels a bit more like a survival horror style game, more than Half-Life 2 does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because obviously there's that aspect of trying to escape from the facility.
See, and this is the horror aspect that you're talking about, Jake. This is the horror aspect. A lot of times you'll see a scientist in a room struggling and you can't do anything to help them.
Yeah. And they'll die.
And then lights are turning off and you're seeing people die left, right and centre.
Yeah.
Look at that, you couldn't get in there to help.
And I think the fact that you sometimes need the scientists and
it
guards
makes it
to
seem
progress.
more, I think it makes it seem even more like, fuck, I wish I could have saved him.
Exactly,
Because you see so few people in the game. Half-Life is unquestionably a phenomenal game. For me, it has some significant problems though.
Yeah.
That I think, when I think about who's played Half-Life, or when I'm talking about recommending it to people, I can't imagine a lot of modern gamers or people who didn't grow up around that sort of environment sticking with it and playing through it. Because it has some very frustrating platforming areas. Mm-hmm. I think there's a feeling of isolation in the game that can make it very much, I don't know where I'm going, I don't know what I'm doing. The game has some graphical limitations, so that some buttons aren't particularly obvious that you might need to push. And there are problems in terms of the AI with the scientists and getting them from A to B. When you actually do require them for a story element, strange glitches can get in the way, and they can be very temperamental kind of scientists, and that makes for some really frustrating experiences with Half-Life.
Yeah, I remember I've stopped playing a couple of times because a scientist has died when I've really needed them or stuff like that.
Then, so although we are called the retro perspective, and yes, I do love older games, I suppose it's very difficult to sort of say to newer players, oh, you should really go and play this, you should really go and play this, you should really go and play this, when so much stuff is getting made these days.
Yeah. But I often compare like Half-Life to Halo in terms of like modern games, because a lot of people have come to me and said that they like Halo.
Yeah.
And that, you know, I should enjoy it more than I do, which is not much. But then I always say, you know, have you played Half-Life? Because Half-Life to me is so much better than Halo, and the AI, as you were saying, is so much more sophisticated. And usually people haven't actually played it.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about, I mean, I suppose at this point, Halo's a retro game, I suppose, to a certain extent, isn't it? You know, people are talking about Halo 3 as if it's retro, and it's like, Jesus Christ, getting old.
Yeah.
But in terms of, for me, first-person shooters begin and end with Half-Life. It's so worthy of revisiting because the experience is just so endlessly intriguing. As I say, Halo, a lot of major sections told through cutscenes. A lot of the time, the action set pieces are just sort of, you're just thrown at you, kill a wave of bad guys, move to the next room. Wave of bad guys, move to the next room. I'm not even trying to criticise necessarily Halo as a game, but if there's ever been a first-person shooter that you must have played before you talk about any others being great, or talk about any others and say that game did well, Half-Life, it really does begin and end there. You've either played Half-Life and you can discuss other first-person shooters, or you've not played it, and thus you cannot, because it really is that good a game. The mechanics are that sophisticated, the story is that enjoyable, and the single-player experience is so rich and worthwhile.
It is the game to be compared to as a first-person shooter, definitely.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I guess the original Half-Life is essentially the greatest game of all time, and that's the end of the discussion, I guess, isn't it?
Yes. Or at least it was. Because then, what they decided to make is the greatest sequel of all time. Enter Half-Life 2.
Rise and shine, Mr. Freeman. Rise and shine. Not that I wish to imply you have been sleeping on the job.
I played Half-Life some years previous.
On your brother's PC?
I think on my brother's PC, but also on the PlayStation 2. That port. So I played Half-Life, and as I think a lot of young people, probably as a kid, I didn't love Half-Life, and I think that's why so many people who I encounter these days who are our age, haven't played Half-Life 2.
Just gave it a miss,
Because Half-Life is such a challenging game, and it's quite unusual for a first-person shooter, as we've discussed. But I played Half-Life 2 without having fully completed Half-Life. I fully played the story. And as soon as I started playing Half-Life 2, I just felt like this game was just it was just a next level.
Yeah.
Like, it felt so different from Half-Life. Like, the story had taken on a completely new life. Still some familiar elements, but it was just such an absolute expansion upon what I'd played previously. Really changed my entire perception of what Half-Life was. So to an extent, I think I enjoy Half-Life more now, knowing what Half-Life 2 actually is.
Definitely, that's definitely the case.
In terms of being able to revisit it, you're like, wow, I can really see where they were going with this. That's gonna blow up, shit! And this is like, what an action movie scenario this is.
Yeah.
I've got to fucking dive below.
Holes underwater.
I've got to dive below while all this shit's just exploding around me. Very, very naturally fucking done. Bullets flying through water at you while you're under there. How fucking nice was that little section there?
Yeah.
Really, really good, innit? Just like little moments like that. And you're already very familiar with the physics and how everything works. That's just like literally the only thing you can do is go underwater to try and avoid it, because otherwise you're going to get blown up. But they're floating. The barrels are floating. Another very important element of what's going on. The physics of how everything works, moves.
Just the more you think about it, the more genius this game is.
Exactly. It just gets better and better and better. The little sections that are just so intelligently crafted. Look at this, what loads of people fucking about. Eat that, dickheads. Just gives you those nice little moments, but like they're not particularly too contrived. Like, you know, it doesn't feel like it, just because there's so many of these barrels around, it just feels natural.
Yeah. It's like you could tell that was handcrafted, but it still felt like it was a natural part of the game.
And you know, you compare that to like, and obviously I love Resident Evil 4, but you compare that to a bit where you can, where you come out of the church and there's that wagon full of barrels and you can just fire it down and it kills a few of them and it just sets them fire. Like that just is never any other bit. Like it's just literally there.
That feels like it's just a one-time
exactly
thing.
Like it's just a one-time thing. Whereas this all feels very natural.
Yeah.
So you've got to come through here. The barrels are blocking you. So you're probably going to grab them and throw them. They slide ahead of you, and the barnacles pick them up.
Yeah.
Gives you, well, look at that. You're intuitively taught a very nice little distraction technique to get round the barnacles while you slide through. Very, very intuitive, very natural. That I didn't anticipate it. I didn't intentionally throw it there. It just happened as part of how I was playing the game. Also, well, you know they can pick up barrels. I wonder if they'll pick up a flammable barrel. Throw that down. Very, very intuitive. Oh, I fucked that, didn't I? Completely fucked that. So the idea is you just fucking throw it.
Nice.
Gets up there, fucking blows up loads of them.
They pick up the little bits of wood.
Exactly, they pick up all sorts of shit. Anything that comes off the debris. Just gives you a nice little way to distract him for past him. There's fucking tons of them. And now you're like, shit, really do with some fucking more. Because look at the fucking state of it.
I've only ever played this on the PS3 so far as the Orange Box, which is a compilation of all the Half-Life 2 games, Portal and Team Fortress.
Yeah.
And basically, I was a bit apprehensive, I guess, at first, because I used to watch GameSpot quite a lot.
Okay.
And one of the things that GameSpot said in their review was that the PS3 version, as opposed to the Xbox 360 version, had a shit ton of bugs, and the frame rate was just like completely, garbage, just like struggling the whole time.
That's the sort of thing that's going to put you off.
Yeah, exactly. So that might be one of the reasons why I didn't play Half-Life 2 for so long.
Okay.
And then obviously you were recommending it to me so much that I had to play it.
Yeah.
So I played the Orange Box. I played Half-Life 2 on the PS3 and literally did not find a single thing that I could possibly say that was wrong with it. No. It was absolutely excellent from a gameplay and a story perspective. And didn't encounter any bugs, didn't encounter any frame rate drops. So,
it's quite strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very strange, and I'm actually quite angry.
No, I'm still to this day livid.
Yeah.
Well, you almost got betrayed there by a review. Something that will never happen when you listen to one of the retrospective reviews. We'll never betray you or tell you anything that's false about a game, ever.
Yeah.
Our word is the gospel, and we'll never lie to any of our loyal viewers. So stick with us, and we'll always put you on to a wonderful game. Enter Half-Life 2.
You've introduced it 3 times.
So Half-Life has a fantastic range of enemies.
Yeah.
But what this game has is a slightly smaller set of enemies, but they're a lot more implemented into the story.
Yeah.
So like all the enemies in Half-Life, there are certain enemies where it's like, oh, you've got to fight this enemy and this enemy and this enemy. But they're just enemies. You're just facing them because that's what the game puts in front of you. In this game, the enemies are very, very well imagined and well conceived. They not only fit organically into the narrative, but they're also specific to certain sections of the game. Like enemies sort of have certain properties that make them more challenging for specific gameplay scenarios. In Half-Life, certain enemies like the bull spit and the hound eye, they're quite similar. Can hit you from a distance and they take a few bullets. Whereas in this game, the antlions, for example, just attacking you out of the ground. And then there's the king antlions, that's like a boss fight. But then you also get them on your side later on, so you can use them as a weapon, which is really, really cool. The way that the soldiers fight in this, like some of them turn up later on and they've got more sophisticated weaponry.
Yeah.
Some of them have grenades. Some of them are running around with shotguns and they try and get a lot closer to you to shoot you. The AI is just really, really well done with all like the soldiers and everything. This is a very cool little feature here. Missiles that contain head crabs. And that's a really cool way of expanding upon this enemy from the first game.
Yeah.
Very, very famous. Probably the most famous enemy in all of Half-Life. And it's expanded upon in this game as if it's like a weapon.
Yeah.
You like fire missiles containing head crabs into areas to like kill people and like to fucking just like fuck people up basically.
Because the thing that I always assumed when I just played Half-Life 1 was that those aliens were all kind of the same kind of race.
Absolutely, exactly.
But in this, you did discover that like the head crabs are kind of completely different to the other things out this.
Look at this, head crabs coming up out of the ground now as well. It's like they're actually like fucking submerged under the ground.
I feel like even small tweaks to like enemy placements and the amount of enemies that you get in certain places have huge impacts on this game. Like, and that just shows you how well designed they are. Because when we were nearly dying in that section, there was like 3 guys to the left and then like 3
manhacks,
manhacks to the other side, and it's like, imagine if you could have like any combination of those kinds of scenarios, couldn't you really?
Yeah.
And then later on, when I was struggling with the helicopter, like there was a first guy that he shot, and then you ran round the corner as the helicopter was shooting you. Then the next guy you had to take out, but he also threw a manhack in the air. And it's like just these little combinations of different enemies
make for very different challenges.
Huge variety in the challenge.
Because you swap in between weapons. The manhack's not very easy to use guns on them. Makes the crowbar a lot more relevant. Whereas in Half-Life 1, the crowbar becomes a lot less relevant as the game goes on. You don't really need to use it as much apart from to smash things. There are enemies that it's really useful on in this game. And it's really always mixing those enemies up, throwing different enemies at you. Never mind how good Half-Life 2 Episode 1 and Episode 2 are. They introduce new enemies, new weapons. The mini striders, the section in Half-Life 2 Episode 2 where you're holed up in a house and the mini striders first come in and they are just absolutely like just breaking in through the windows and you're just running from area to area with the biggest weapons you have trying to take them out. This is very, very intelligent level design because not only are these excellently fun challenges to take on, but they're built so organically into the game. It makes sense that in this prison they've got all these turrets just in case they need to control guys. A riot gets out of hand, they bang these turrets down. Why wouldn't they have them? And then you've managed to fight your way in, you're causing havoc. You've now got access to all these turrets. It makes sense. Every section it's like, right, well, how would that be built into this world? Like, it forewarns you about the antlions long before you get near them. The idea of Ravenholm, like, you're so intelligently trapped off from everyone else, and like, it just builds and builds and builds. Like these environments, it doesn't feel like, oh, now we're going through the zombie town. And it sort of should feel like that, but it doesn't. It feels just like you've exited out of this lab and you're going down this sort of dark path, and it takes like quite a while organically before you get out of the lab to such a degree that you're now in this zombie town. Like it's not just one step to the other. Even for just the story, I think it's the best sequel ever. It takes all the characters who are very much under the surface, just like the names of Barney the security guard, each individual scientist. It takes the models of the scientists and makes out, hey, these were real people, these were individual characters. Dr. Kleiner, Eli Vance, and it expands on these people. And then when you meet them in Half-Life 2, they're fully fleshed out, expanded characters. And it takes this plot that was under the surface in Half-Life and it just makes it this whole new world. And it really makes it a massively character-driven game. And the idea that G-Man taken Gordon Freeman because he was such an effective force against these aliens. And he said to him, look, you either work for me as someone against intergalactic forces at my disposal, or you can face annihilation right now. The idea that Gordon Freeman is then put in suspended animation, removed from humanity, until the G-Man decides this is the right time to send him back to turn the tide of the war. Now, that plot is so high concept. And very little of it, it's never, at no point in Half-Life does anyone say, these aliens, they're slaves. If only we could find their master and destroy him. Like, it's never even said even that. Like, it's very much all happening in the background. Like, you are going to try and stop what's happening, but you don't even know exactly who these people are, what's going on. And why would you? Why would the scientists know? Guys came through there, guys came through there, beat the shit out of me, and then Alex Vance has saved me. Now here we're talking about a character who is not Caucasian. She's a mixed race female who is attractive but isn't overtly so. She hasn't got massive tits. She isn't overtly sexualized. Alex is actually incredibly intelligent character in this game, and is basically the main character in the absence of Gordon Freeman actually being able to speak for himself. And Alex Vance is one of the best characters in gaming history, bar none, absolutely. And, you know, we're talking about games nowadays. It's like, oh, it's a massive deal when female characters are portrayed like respectfully, or as if they're actually anything other than eye candy, which is exactly what Alex Vance is. She's not portrayed as eye candy. She's never sexualized. She's just an absolute intelligent badass who's trying to fucking get out of this situation. Also, just there, quite intelligently, although the game is very organic and very open, those stairs were destroyed, so I couldn't go back to the area I'd been in previously, making so I had to go through this bit that I was just in. So I couldn't revisit the previous section. Very intelligent.
Rather than
it just making me go into it, or a cutscene has already occurred,
exactly.
Or something like that.
And then you're in a new area.
The game's like, it's just like, oh, what if a character tries to go back all the way they came, sort of ruin the scene? Nah, break those stairs so they can do what they want until they get in that lift. She gives a lot of the exposition. She adds a lot of like the humanity to it. She's also a very likable character who ends falling in love with Gordon for no real reason.
Because he's completely silent.
He's not said a single word. It's also fun little things where she's like, not much of a talker, are you? And stuff like that. But she's just a very engaging character who's well voiced and well like actualized.
So she's the daughter of
Eli Vance, the black scientist from the first game, and who's completely like created as like given a new voice actor and everything.
Yeah, but I like that because it does link her to the first game. Whereas if she was just a standalone character, it would definitely cut her off from that link. So I would probably say that the president or whatever of City 17, the bearded guy, is probably not that memorable a character really.
I think he's actually quite a good villain.
Really?
I actually really
like him.
Yeah, I think he's really good. Because obviously a lot of the story of him's told through like other people talking about him.
Exactly, yeah.
But the idea that he's this cowardly scientist, you see a lot of him like bargaining with like this superior alien race.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, you know,
he's basically a puppet.
Yeah, he's sold them all out completely. Like,
so that's kind of one of the things that obviously it's a great character trait, but I don't feel like he's built up enough to say that he is like the main villain.
He isn't the main villain, which is what's so good about it. He's the human, like obviously the main villain of this Combine, this fiction, this alien race who are sort of like overarching everything. Exactly. But he's sort of like a human, this coward who's sort of like, but you're not necessarily trying to kill him or stop him necessarily. That's never really the goal. He's just trying to stop you.
That's kind of a good and bad thing really, because I do like how mysterious the Combine are for one.
Yeah, exactly.
But then at the same time, you kind of feel like you want some sort of main villain to kind of, you know, put a face on it.
I think, that's what Breen sort of does for me. Breen does put a face to this Combine, who are quite a difficult villain to conceptualise otherwise, because there's no, like, they don't talk to you or anything. They're just these, like, freakish monsters. Now, for me, all I want to see is more of the Combine. I want to learn more about them and fight them and stop them. Yeah. Which is why I want Half-Life 3 to come out.
The graphics are absolutely beautiful for the time. The textures are phenomenal. The lighting is a real step up
really good.
From any game you'd experienced at that point.
The sky, like the way things in the distance look.
And that makes it even more important as well when you were talking about the driving sections. This getting to be a more open style game with like open sections.
More open than Half-Life. It has tremendous water as well, even to this point, even to this day. This game really uses its graphics to its advantage. Yeah. Unlike Half-Life, but despite the fact that it's still a very open game, it's very intuitively linear. You very rarely feel lost in Half-Life 2, like you don't know what you're doing or you don't know where to go, which is a massive, massive step forward from Half-Life, where players can get lost very easily. And I think that's a massive achievement, and it's certainly down to the way that the levels are designed and the way the graphics are utilised as part of that. Yeah,
I feel like placement of objects in Half-Life 1 and 2, to be honest, is like a massive thing that complements the level design. So I remember vividly in Ravenholm, like you get the buzzsaw things, and the way some of those are placed like suggests that if you move them out of the way, that will be the way that you need to go, because some of them are like in the way.
Yeah, in the walls and stuff. And also, even with the gravity gun, the physics in this game are exceptional. I think it's sort of also another thing to state at this point. Yeah. The physics engine in this game was just completely... This was groundbreaking. But you know, it's like, right, this is exactly what Gordon Freeman would do in this situation. He'd say, stop listening to this bullshit. Unplug it and throw the TV.
That's great. He literally ripped it out of the wall.
And that's what's so great about the physics in this, you know, you really take on the character. We're talking like a ragdoll physic that works perfectly. Enemies falling, enemy hit points that were very, very well realised in terms of shooting enemies in certain points. It would damage them in certain ways that felt natural. In terms of like the physics, absolutely. Like you would move objects and objects have a weight to them. You can't just pick and throw things around. You can throw a Coke can around, but you can't throw like a concrete cinder block.
Yeah.
Objects have weightings, so if you throw something at an opponent, depending on what it is, it could cause more damage. Certainly when you get the gravity gun later on, even though that the weightings become less relevant because you can then use a gun to pick up and fire some of the heavier objects.
Yeah.
There are still some things that you just can't pick up, obviously, because of how the physics works. And yeah, absolutely, when you're moving the blades out of the doors in Ravenholm, like they're sort of jaggedly stuck in there and you've got to sort of move them in a certain way.
Half-Life 2 does an amazing job of giving purpose to that mechanic as well.
Absolutely.
Because, like, if you think of a game like Elder Scrolls, you can pick up like plates and stuff and just like
absolutely.
Fling them around.
Yeah.
But there's no actual reason to do that.
It's just something that you can do.
It's just something that you can do. Whereas in Half-Life 2, they have a similar sort of physics system, but there is so much meaning to that.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of very, very intuitive puzzles that are solved by applying real life physics and just your knowledge of environment and the things that you know as an individual are applied to quite a few of the puzzles in Half-Life, certainly early on. And what that makes for are incredibly satisfying puzzle solving elements. So when you come to those solutions, you've thought of them intuitively, you've thought of them because you're a human and you know how things move and work. And the game absolutely mirrors that. Yeah. If something should float in the water, it does float in the water. If something should weigh something down, it does weigh it down. And they're used to complete really nice little puzzle elements that just feel very natural. There are also several moments in the game where you don't actually need to complete them to progress with the storyline, but you can solve a little puzzle as like a little side thing, just to get extra ammo or health and stuff like that. And those moments are really, really well achieved as well, and like just feels like some nice little simple puzzles that you're solving with physics.
Yeah.
And that, never mind the section with the ant lions. Where the objects become absolutely vital in terms of how you're actually manoeuvring around the room, the area rather, and like just in terms of you put something down or you step off of something incorrectly or you move wrong, you're in real trouble and you're gonna get the shit kicked out of you by these enemies. It makes for a really scary, really gripping scenario where you're in complete control of everything that you're moving around, and it's like, and you really need to use the objects in the environment to help you get through it. You're talking about criticisms of Half-Life 2, Jake. One criticism you could levy at the game is the weapons loadout. So there aren't actually that many weapons.
Yeah, compared to Half-Life 1.
There are less weapons than Half-Life 1.
Yeah.
There are less weapons. Now, for me personally, the gravity gun more than makes up for that.
Yeah, sure.
Because it is so versatile and it's so much fun to use. I also don't think that a game should be judged exactly by how many weapons it's involved with.
No, definitely
It's how
not.
useful the weapons are and how naturally you find yourself in environments where you can actually use all those weapons.
Yeah.
Of which...
A lot of people focus on things like that, like how many weapons a game has, and that's not, it's not an issue for me at all.
No, not at all. Oh, fuck. I've been hit by a barnacle. Didn't even see it. Did not even see it. How good's that? You've been introduced to him. You know, see, this thing's just flying in my fucking face, just doing me head in. You thought it was just sort of like taking your picture at start game, and it's not a bit like harmless, but it's just actually getting you fucking doing me head in. He just threw the Monarch into the air, you see that? So
I didn't see that.
Yeah, he's unleashing him sort of thing. Look at this combined with this fucking thing. You can't see what's going on.
I mean, I was going to say, like, this little thing, like shining the light in your eyes.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen any other game that I can think of apart from Metal Gear Solid, like with the flashlights on the weapons.
Yeah.
Where they did it so effectively.
Intelligent enemy design.
Yeah, and using real life things as gameplay mechanics. If you get a light shine in your eyes, you're not going to be able to aim a gun, are you?
Are you ready?
Basically.
Look at this bit of steam's just fucking... I've got to come out here and fucking shoot this barnacle. And I keep getting steamed.
Other first-person shooters don't really think about stuff like that. As we say, they think about, like, how many weapons have we got and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But how do those weapons actually implement into the gameplay? Like,
the first boss fight you encounter is kind of a helicopter that chases you throughout the huge section, which you were saying that's your favourite section in it, basically.
Yeah, I think it's one of my favourite sections. I have many, but I think it's a
section.
very, very satisfying introduction before you get to quite a lot of characters and like a lot more stuff going on. Like just a great little travelling section, and this helicopter is following you for ages. You're fighting several different helicopters, and it's just how there's a great the driving section before that. It throws obstacles in your way, and then when you're having the fight with it, it utilises those obstacles to actually, like the bombs.
Yeah.
It starts like launching just tons of bombs at you, and it's like, but it makes like like as an attack pattern.
Yeah.
And I think that it just makes for such a satisfying, like you're trying to get out of the way of all these bombs, and it's just absolutely crazy. And I think it just makes for like just an incredibly cool fight with like some meaning behind it. This helicopter's been giving you nothing but shit. The characters you meet will finally put a gun on your boat, and then suddenly you just like absolutely laying waste to things that you've been driving through or trying to avoid before.
It makes the whole section so satisfying.
Yeah.
Like right at the end.
Exactly, and you manage to finally fucking shoot this helicopter down in like a really cool boss fight. You run driving around for health.
Yeah.
And it just makes for just an incredibly satisfying sequence.
For its time, I think, for it to be like a section where you have to get off it. Like you're driving around and then you have to get off to do things.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like usually in the game like this, you would just have an on rails section.
Well,
basically.
exactly, yeah. Like for example, this bit. You can see the G-Man up there. Now this is totally optional. Now I believe there was a map in that woman's office that I didn't actually just look at, but I should have done. But it tells you that there's a bit up here where it's like loot or something, like a loot.
Ah, okay.
So like a care package or whatever.
Yeah, so you can get off here.
So you can get off here and you're thinking, right, I'm gonna get off here and get some stuff. But as soon as you get in, fucking hell, there's a fucking thing that's been hit, and look, these zombies are absolutely smashing barrels at you. And it's like, fuck, like this is like actually it's been hit by one of these missiles.
Yeah.
The head crab missiles. But it's like you've got to come up here and then it's like, oh, there's the loot. Nice little physics. You're trying to move this fucking thing out of the way. But you can't. Can I smash anything? Fucking gotta get this fucking barrel out of the way.
You just slide it out.
Yeah, but it's just like fucking, it's like a ragged sort of like thing where it's like proper interactive with the environment. That's unleashed it. Now it's all out in the water. It's not like you just get on the boat just to have the fight. And it's not like you just get on the boat and then it's just a quick little section on the boat.
Yeah.
It's a very, very well thought out, detailed, lengthy section of the game where the boat becomes part of you for quite a bit of it. So it's like when you get rid of the boat, it's suddenly like, oh yeah, I haven't got the boat anymore. Like, because you have it for ages.
Yeah.
And it's similar with the car later on. You've got the car for just a very lengthy section of the game.
Yeah.
And it's like these vehicle sections aren't just small little things where you're just riding it around for a little bit. I just want to harken back to, like, let's say another game that I can think of that I've played relatively recently. Uncharted 4, there's a bit where you're on like a car and you're driving around and then you get out of the car, have to do like a little fight, get an item or whatever, and then you're back in the car.
Yeah.
The section could just be done without a car. Like, it doesn't really like... You're just sort of driving around in it.
The two gameplay elements don't really gel with each other.
It never meshes massively. Like, you're travelling around in the car and it's fair enough. And then...
I mean, I mentioned Last of Us a couple of times.
Yeah.
I actually got annoyed in that game.
Yeah.
When she kept saying, oh, we need to get up here.
Oh, you need to go grab that pallet.
Yeah. It's like the same thing every single time.
It was exactly. It was the exact same way to fix it every single time.
And that just
like
shows
the pallets.
you.
These pallets are just everywhere, and it's like, come on, we can build games more intelligently than that.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't need to be the same thing all the time.
Yeah, the music's being used really well.
Kicks
here.
in already to just be like, you're in the mix here.
Yeah, it kicks in at the right times, basically.
Exactly. Soundtrack's very, very sparse, and then when you feel it, you're in for it makes you feel it that bit more.
Yeah.
Because you're in a fucking fight now, you're in a fucking battle.
And the good thing is, you almost don't notice the music when it kicks in. because the action has started and the music's coming as well.
But it's just
so
like
just
what would happen in a movie sort of thing. Just makes you feel like more like you're in a movie. Adds more impact to everything that's going on.
Yeah.
It just makes you feel like you're more in charge of the character. And well, this is fucking ace. Like I'm fucking writing a fucking war here.
The sound design, again, it's like really genius in this game.
Yeah.
Every enemy has its
own
like a
unique
distinct
very distinct sound,
and you can always tell when one's around.
Exactly, absolutely.
And what you have to do to like prepare yourself.
Absolutely,
for how we're going to do
very
this.
much hearing them, very, very much so. You're absolutely spot on there.
Another thing I've noticed that like sometimes some games are quite annoying with this, like when you don't know when a character is actually dead. If you start shooting a character, you don't know whether you've used enough bullets or whatever.
Does a little thing every noise.
Yeah, when a character dies, it does the little radio sound.
Yeah, every single time. So sort of like a little thing where it's like
a flat line.
Yeah, like a flat line.
So you know that you don't have to waste any more bullets.
Absolutely.
There's something which I didn't know about.
Yeah.
That you told me about, which is kind of the biggest secret in the game, I guess.
Yeah. It is, and like and you know, it's quite a weird little secret.
Yeah.
I remember when I looked it up, I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And it's like a lot of what people know about the plot, or sort of what the idea is of the plot, and how the Vortigaunts have been separated from. Like, the idea is why they're now good guys, as opposed to the enemies that shot lightning at you in the first game. In the first game, you can actually see it. They have like bracelets on, like shackles, and the idea is that these aliens have been enslaved. So while you're just fighting them and no one is saying anything about this in the first game, the design elements are there. These Vortigaunts are slaves of the overarching villain, which is the Combine, like an alien race that can enslave others. And the Nihilith was one of these like masters, as the Vortigaunt, the all-seeing Vortigaunt refers to. The lesser master is slain, but the greater master is still out there, and you got to kill him, sort of thing. Yeah. So it's like you've beaten one of these things. That was the end of Half-Life 1, but they're who are running the game, those who are running the show, sort of thing. And it just adds like just a bit more depth to everything that's going on, and it's just a completely weird little secret. Just go and find him, and it's just you got climb, run through a little radioactive section. It's very strange that it even exists.
Yeah,
but
don't even know
like,
why he's there.
And then you just speak to him repeatedly to get all of his thoughts. But it's like just a weird little secret, but it just fleshes out a little bit more to the plot and adds a little bit more depth to the relationship between Gordon and the Vortigaunts, which becomes more and more important as the game goes on. Mm-hmm. I suppose for me, what I want from a video game, especially these days, is challenge and variety. Like, you know, you can be playing Skyrim or Fallout, and these games just never, ever change. The enemies are just the same. Don't matter how big... what's the difference between a super mutant and a super mutant fucking Zeta or whatever, like the highest level? They just take more damage. Like, the shooting and the mechanics are all the exact same. Nothing is different. Whereas in Half-Life, even though you just got a first-person shooter, so essentially it's the same sort of premise, you're just shooting things. The game constantly manages to freshen things up repeatedly throughout.
Yeah. I think what I would say is like looking at what first-person shooter games we have now that are coming out all the time, like Far Cry, year after year, open world stuff going out. You know, running for hours, just running through the wilderness. Nothing is going on. Nothing is happening. Collecting little notes and stuff that don't really mean anything. Basically, if you compare that, what are the most popular first-person shooter games at the moment, to this, you kind of feel like Half-Life 2 was made today, and those games are the ones that were made years ago, where people were just attempting to make these games.
More and more, my problem with games, like, and this is true of any game, like a Grand Theft Auto even, I get very, very tired of boring side missions, collecting things, running around collecting things. Like, you're adding length to a game artificially. If I've got to run around collect loads of shit, I'm either not going to be able to do it without a guide, or if I'm using a guide, well, I'll just use the guide. What was the challenge?
And then you're just going from point to point.
I'm just point to point, just collecting things, and it's
for
like
no real reason.
What is my life worth outside of a video game? Have I really got the time to spend? I'll just go and follow this guide to collect all these things. What the fuck does it matter to me how many treasures I have? It doesn't affect the game at all. R5 is a game that there's no bullshit involved in this game. The game designers were constantly, how can we make this fun more than anything else? This is just a fun video game, an incredibly fun video game.
Every single element of it is gameplay.
Yeah, it really is.
From even just standing talking to people, you're still in control of Gordon Freeman.
That's it. You learn about as much of the plot as you want to learn about. You're the one speaking to everyone. It's just such a fun game, and you're absolutely right. Games these days, they're lengthy, long, big things, and just because a game's open world or just because a game has loads of side missions, if those missions aren't fun, if the world you're in doesn't feel like you have any impact on it, or and you're just moving through it, if there's nothing to do in that world, where's the fun coming from? Are we not supposed to play video games for fun? What are we spending our time achieving or doing? We should be playing fun experiences, and that is fundamentally what Half-Life 2 is, because it puts you into the shoes of Arnold fucking Schwarzenegger, of Rambo, of, Kurt Russell, of all these action stars, shit blowing up around you, and you diving, ducking, jumping out of the way.
So I've heard you have powers now, like Doctor Strange.
Yes, I do have powers like that.
Where you can see every possible future.
Yes.
That could possibly happen.
I'll do it right now. Here's how many possible futures Half-Life 3 comes out in. Put special effects around that. I'm back.
Ah, cool. Nice. It only took you 2 hours. Jesus.
Really? It felt like seconds. But those are the powers that I have.
So did you find out if any possible futures contain Half-Life 3 so I can tell the viewers?
Yes, I did. What have I told you about listening to this dickhead?